Hi, everyone. My name is Lonnie Bloom. I'm an audit partner here at Withum, where we provide audit, tax, and advisory services. I'm a member of our technology practice, and I co-lead our e-commerce sector. Super excited to be here today with Emilie Schario. She's the founder and CEO of Turbine. For today's conversation, we'll be talking about how e-coms manage their physical inventory from procurement and manufacturing to inventory management and order-to-cash proof. Emilie, thank you for being here today. Can you share a little bit about your background and what drove you here today to become the founder of Turbine, which you describe as a lightweight ERP for companies to manage their physical inventories?
Yeah, Lonnie, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Like you said, I'm CEO and founder of Turbine. And uh, describing Turbine is a hard thing because we say ERP, and I think for a lot of people, their like spidey senses go up that this is not a good thing, right? Everyone I like to joke has been burned by some ERP implementation, or they just haven't been working long enough yet. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how we talk about what we do and what we help brands with. But really, what it comes down to is we help companies better understand what inventory they have where, what inventory they need to have where, and how much that inventory is costing them. And so when we work with mid market, multi channel brands, we're helping them understand what they need for their manufacturers, what they have at their manufacturers, what inventory they've got in different warehouses, what's supporting Amazon, what's supporting their retail partners, and give them a single place where they can understand everything about their business. And part of where Turbine came from, we're lucky enough to have many different brands that we're working with today. But one of the first brands to join us was a women's health company called Stix. And Amina, our champion there, she would start her day by logging into this app to see how much they sold yesterday, and that app to see how many new subscriptions customers they have, and that app to see what their inventory looks like, and that app to see the state of their purchase orders. And she'd lose her first hour every day just to like figure out what happened yesterday. And so Turbine really came from this place of wanting to make sure brands have and all the information they need in order to run an operationally efficient organization out of a single application.
That's great. Yeah, it's certainly solving an issue that a lot of e-coms face, right? The aggregation of data to then make business decisions is huge. Emilie, what is your background? Did you come from a sort of operational role and were you
Yeah.
dealing with these types of issues?
I've had a variety of experiences, kind of at the intersection of operations, business operations, analytics, and direct to consumer. So, one of the roles that I had, I was the very first data hire at Smile Direct Club back in 2016. Smile Direct Club doesn't even exist anymore, but or they're in the process of not existing anymore as we're recording this. But I joined Smile Direct Club back in 2016. They were early pioneers of the D2C movement. If you think about that time, Shopify was not what it was. And so SmileDirectClub.com was a Flask app built by, 25 developers in Nashville, Tennessee. And all of our dev team was so focused on everything that was customer facing that things that were internal facing were built by me and then eventually the larger data org. And we really, I would say, pushed the limits of our data stack, which at the time was Redshift, dbt, Looker, and Periscope. Probably some other things I don't remember now, but we could go, just by nature of being the people with the data. We might work on customer support things in 1 minute, and then profitability in another, and supply chain in another. And so really thinking about how we can bring all these pieces together to help give the operational teams the information that they needed to be more efficient. That was a really foundational role for me in a lot of what we do at Turbine today. I went on to hold other roles. I was the very first data analyst at GitLab, which is now a public company. I held a bunch of different roles at GitLab, including being interim chief of staff to the CEO. I went on to be head of data at Netlify, where I led ML, data engineering, data analytics, analytics engineering. But I really kept getting pulled back to these operational workflows and this idea that like if we can get the whole company working on the same problems, on the same set of numbers, right? If every discussion around like, well, what is profitability doesn't start with a debate about what is and isn't included or what this person's number doesn't match that number. If we can get everyone reading from the same book and marching on the same beat, we can be more productive together.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you sharing the background. Like you said, data is key, and having the right data and being on the same page, everyone at the company is important. That's huge. So there are a lot of steps that take you from procurement and manufacturing to executing on a sale and shipping a product to the end customer. At the beginning of this workflow, I think of purchase order management and challenges that companies face with tracking and maintaining that data. And you talk a lot about the importance of three-way match. Can you explain what three-way match is and sort of what Turbine is doing to solve this problem?
Yeah. So I like to use the example of a peanut butter jar. I don't even like peanut butter. I think peanut butter is kind of gross, which internet people don't come after me. But it's an example that everyone can wrap their head around, right? So a peanut butter jar, it's the jar. Let's say it's glass. It's a lid. It's a label. And it's a fill. And if you're selling peanut butter in jars, you'll see people generally have one or two kinds of supply chain. One is where they are procuring all those jars, all of those labels, all of those lids. They're sending them to a co-man who's producing the recipe that they've made and then filling it. That's kind of number one. Option number two is more of a turnkey process where the co-man or the person actually making that peanut butter fill is going to procure all the items and fill the jar for you. And with each of these, there are pros and cons to these different supply chains, but managing all the different players is one of the big hard ones. And so if you think about, you order 1,000 jars for $1,000, just to keep it simple. 1,000 jars, $1,000, $1 a jar. They show up at your warehouse. You ordered 1,000, but only 999 showed up. You want to make sure that you're paying only for what you ordered, right? And so three-way match is the process of reconciling that purchase order for what you ordered with the receipt for what is received at the warehouse with the invoice for what's being paid. And the timing for all these things can be all over the place, right? We work with some brands that prepay all of their suppliers. So they pay before any items are shipped. We work with other brands where payment is always 30 days after goods arrive at the warehouse, right? So there's a wide spectrum, but generally things are ordered, things are received, and they need to be paid for. And you need to be able to tie these things together. And it's really an efficiency thing because you're short one jar this order and the next order and the next order and the next order. And now you're $50,000 in the hole, not because anyone's made a mistake, but because you just weren't reconciling what was received to what you're actually paying for.
Yeah, that's a super interesting example. And you're definitely in the 1% with not liking peanut butter. I probably have a tablespoon of that per day.
Oh my gosh. People on the internet would love to come after me for it. So maybe that's the part of this conversation that'll go viral.
I'm sure. But yeah, it's interesting the importance of that process to then save dollars on the back end, right? And that's the ultimate goal, right? You don't want to be shedding dollars when you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about the dollars and cents. There's also, again, that like operational workflow. If you're sending that 1,000 jars not to your warehouse, but to your manufacturer, and they're only receiving 950, let's call it, then when you go to order 1,000 jars of peanut butter, you can't because they only have 950 to make for you, right? And so when you think about how that ripples through your supply chain, you paid an extra $50 in that example, but also now you were 50 jars short. You were short your forecasted numbers. So you're going to have to rush ship your next order because you don't want to stock out, right? Like there are all of these ways that not having full visibility like that up front can make a big difference to the supply chain at every step, both in terms of operational efficiencies and dollar efficiencies.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly a domino effect there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Emily, I work with a lot of e-coms that sell their product in a multi-channel environment with thousands of transactions per day. And a lot of times they're not using one, but maybe several credit card processors to help process those payments. Can we talk a little bit about the order to cash process and the importance of being able to reconcile sales in a timely manner?
Yeah. So order to cash, big old beast. And I like to think of it as there's roughly two kinds of order to cash that a business has to do. The first is the order to cash where the customer is the end customer. It's Emilie buying a pair of shoes on ThursdayBoots.com, or it's Lonnie buying pizza from PocoBarrow.com, right? That's one kind of order to cash workflow. The other kind of order to cash workflow is your large retailers, right? It's Sugar Dough selling to Ulta. And I mention that because the payment terms, when you and I place an order on some direct to consumer website, we're almost always, paying our credit card right up front, right? I would love to wait until delivery to pay for my new shoes, but that's not the way online shopping works. And retailers, though, they have a slightly different approach, which is that they're oftentimes not paying for goods until 30, 60, 90 days after items have been received. And so when we handle order to cash, which is the process of knowing that an order that's placed by a customer here meaning a lot of different things, payment is collected and order is fulfilled, payment is collected, and payment is received. And that all those things happen for the business. Like the process for doing that order to cash reconciliation is very different depending on what the word customer is in that sentence. So what we really focus on is understanding how are you already collecting this information, right? So when we bring in Turbine to a new brand that we work with, we're not trying to change anything about their existing workflows. We focus first and foremost on understanding what workflows they have that are working really well. Oh, you're noting that you're getting paid by big box retailer and it's coming into QuickBooks. Great. We're going to integrate with QuickBooks because that's the source of truth on that information. We want to pull it directly from there. Right? The last thing we want to do is introduce any manual workflow that's probably going to get ignored anyway. So really focusing on understanding your workflows so that we can help you capture everything. Some of the early data that we have from interviews says that brands are losing between 1 to 5% of revenue to problems in the order to cash process, right? 1 to 5% of revenue, which seems insane, right? But one of the biggest reasons for that, we think, and from these conversations, is that let's say there's a problem on December 2nd and order comes in and then the payment, whatever happens, the payment never actually goes through. But you've already fulfilled that order, sent it out, and nobody realizes there is a problem with it until month-end close, which is now January 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, before someone realizes there's a problem, right? If you're lucky. But at that point, it's January 8th, those shoes are already delivered. Like they've probably already worn out the soles and there's nothing you can really do about problems in the process. And so brands have no choice but to kind of like, oh no, we lost this money. It's not worth chasing down. If we can close the loop, if we can continuously do the order to cash reconciliation like we do with our customers in Turbine, we can tell them, here are the orders with payment problems from yesterday, and bring that to their attention so they can constantly stay on top of it and have that better visibility.
Right. Yeah, I could certainly appreciate the importance of this workflow from an auditor's perspective. When we go into a year-end audit, we're doing a proof of cash test ourselves, and we're looking at cash deposits versus revenue. And many times there's issues reconciling that data. and it could be materially off, and that's where a lot of the questions arise, some adjustments, and certainly a workflow that can have a lot of issues along the way.
Yeah, I think when it comes to finances or accounting and kind of bookkeeping in general, for a lot of business owners, like they didn't get into it because they wanted to be bookkeeping. And so, it's outsourced or like it's over there. It's not something they're staying on top of. They're focused on the product and delivery and fulfillment and all these things that are super crucial to the brand and the brand reputation. And the money's almost an afterthought. Like the it's not even money. It's the nuanced accounting workflows that only finance people care about, right? Like that's all an afterthought to them. Not because they don't care, but because they're so focused on the hair on fire things in front of them. So when we automate that workflow, what we're saying is this thing that you may or may not already be doing, we're going to help you level up your game. And that's where it can take a brand to the next level.